right. Terrorism in Nigeria has evolved in the last decade, declining from a record high of 9.12 points to 7.658 points in 2015. Now that indicates some progress in the anti-terror war in the country.
Absolutely clear, but I bet you meant 2025.
2025, I beg your pardon.
And these are not just numbers. The new figure moved Nigeria 2 places up from her 8th position in 2024 to 6th on the Global Terrorism Index in 2025.
Indeed, 2025. My goggles are seen double this morning. Anyway, the Global Terrorism Index is an annual report which provides a comprehensive summary of the key global trends and patterns in terrorism since 2000. Now, it ranked Burkina Faso as the most terrorized country in the world.
Well, and followed closely by Pakistan, Mali, Syria, and Niger, all closely following Burkina Faso. Nigeria was also part of the top 10, which included Somalia, the Democratic Republic of the Congo, and Cameroon.
Well, the rating indicates that in 2024, Nigeria recorded her lowest number of terrorist attacks since 2014. But we really need to mention factors that aided this decline.
And there are a lot of them, really. Now, the actions of the country's troops on the ground, in the sea and in the air, all contributed to these gains. Recall the onslaught against terror groups by the armed forces. And so groups like Boko Haram and Lakurawa are not where they used to be.
Well, of course, the Global Terrorism Index report also has its own reasons for the ranking where we should step up. But concerned persons believe that there is need to sustain the gains of what we've done, to avoid reprisal, and of course looking at factors that make the groups that Victor just mentioned thrive, and we must also address those factors head on with serious enlightenment on the roles of citizens in sustaining the gains. Now, these are some of the issues we will, be looking at this morning on Good Morning Nigeria. And of course, that index is the prompt for our conversation. I thank you for joining us. It's always a pleasure to have you on the program. I am Claire Adelabu Abdul Razak, and the victory is ours this morning.
Indeed. And I am Victor as well. I also welcome you to the program. We will review the newspaper, in a bit with Chukwudi Okoliobaja, and after the news with Dennis Adeb. You're watching Good Morning Nigeria on the network service of the NTA. Now, to set the tone for the discussion, here is a background report put together by Ibrahim and Habibi.
Nigeria's military, police, security and intelligence agencies have been working tirelessly to combat the threat of terrorism, and their efforts are yielding positive results. In this asymmetric warfare, Nigeria's defense capabilities have not only adapted but also evolved to engage hostile enemies of the state and terminate all threats efficiently and effectively. The Nigerian armed forces have been at the forefront of this battle, with various operations aimed at rooting out terrorist groups. Operation Hatinkai, launched in 2021, has been particularly successful in disrupting the activities of these groups. The military has also been conducting joint operations with regional and international partners, further strengthening their capabilities. In addition to military operations, Nigeria's security agencies have been working to prevent the spread of terrorism. The Civilian Joint Task Force, established in 2013, has been instrumental in supporting the military's efforts and providing security for local communities. Since 2023, Nigeria's military has continued to intensify its efforts against terrorism. The Nigerian Army has launched several successful operations, including Operation Desert Sanity and Operation Lake Sanity. which have resulted in the neutralization of several high-profile terrorists and the destruction of their hideouts. Notably, the recent Global Terrorism Index ranked Nigeria 6th, highlighting the country's efforts to combat terrorism. Nigeria's intelligence agencies have also played a crucial role in gathering information and disrupting terrorist networks. Their efforts have led to the arrest and prosecution of several high-profile terrorists. The gains made in the war against terrorism are a testament to the bravery and dedication of Nigeria's military, security, and intelligence agencies. As Nigeria continues to face the threat of terrorism, concerned persons recognize the progress made and the unwavering support of troops on the front line, who tirelessly serve to keep the country safe and stable in a world plagued by insecurity and hostile agendas. Building on these successes, security and combat experts will discuss the implications of these developments and the future of Nigeria's counterterrorism efforts, shedding light on strategies to further strengthen the country's defense capabilities.
Rahim Dan Hamidu giving us a background report today. Thank you. And to speak to the sustaining gains of war against terrorism, that's of course specifically the Global Terrorism Index Report 2025. We have our guests right here in the studio. Group Captain Sadiq Shehu, retired, is a private consultant on security and defense matters. He's also CEO, Conflict Security and Development Consult. He joins us live here in our studio. Thank you very much, Group Captain.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure.
And also here with us is Ben Shimang, former Director, News and, of course, Defense Correspondent, Voice of Nigeria, VON. We call it VON. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you, Claire. And we have also been joined for this conversation by Patrick Abambo, a security expert. A pleasure to welcome you again. Good morning, Nigeria.
It's a pleasure. Thank you.
All right, gentlemen, thank you very much once again for joining us. This is it's a good day. It's a good day. At least the Global Terrorism Report Index gives us, reason to, breathe a sigh of relief. But let's start with. I want to start with Patrick. Give us your own analysis. What is the bad news and what is the good news for Nigeria from this report?
Yeah, the report tells it because when you check the graphs of that report, you notice that there have been some gradual drop in terms of the report. Nigeria started gaining the grants from 2017, and yes, there was a time it went up a bit, of course, and we know the reasons. Once there is political activities coming up, there seems to be a bit of upbeat in security challenges, but it started dropping furthermore, and we are glad that so far last year report was favorable, and we were looking forward to the time when we would almost have close to zero incidents, even though it's almost impossible now, because like I always said, it never allowed terrorism or insurgency to begin in your domain, because when it starts, it's difficult to take it off totally. We will still have issues which we are having today. Today, not that we are not experiencing, we are still having some of those kidnapping issues. The bandits are still creating problems. We still have some of the remnant of this ISWAP and their Boko Haram, even though now they are fighting among themselves for territorial control, but they still come out against the soft targets. But the armed forces of Nigeria are also ready and taking them on, and it's good what is happening, but more still needs to be done because some of the far-flung areas are still a bit porous. Again, it's because accessibility has been the challenge, but with the improved resources and commitments, which I know that the armed forces, the soldiers, both the soldiers and their commanders, the commitment is there. The dual government just need to do their own part by providing the needful, so that, and the people majorly, like I always say, they have the larger share in making sure that this challenge that has been with us for some time now is taken off.
What are the facts of this report? Let's even understand the facts of the report. What is the report saying, you know, regarding Nigeria's counter-terrorism fight? In terms of numbers, in terms of fatalities, and reasons given.
Again, I think that's one of the challenges I always bring up, because measuring situation out there, you need, some of these agencies and organizations depend on media publications. They depend on eyewitness accounts, which are sources and all that, and some, you know, it varies. Sometimes it's not very accurate, but of course it gives you a guide to what it's. We particularly, I take delight in visiting some of these areas, and I've also seen that some of how you can measure is that you find that commercial activities are returning back, agricultural activities are also returning back, festive periods are also returning back in terms of the Muslim activities that are going on. People are beginning to, at least without so much fear, break their fast and all that, gather to break their fast, unlike in the past. These are measured, these are the matches in terms of measuring what you can do. But in terms of reporting incident, that is where you may not be totally accurate. But of course, because sometimes you see, if you depend on media reports, which is what I always say, media, some media can, and those local media can exaggerate figures. And when something happens, they can blow it for attraction and all that. So you don't so much depend on those, but make sure you have your own pointers to be able to get accurate figures. So in terms of figures, one may not be totally correct, but in terms of perception, you can say yes, there's improvement.
All right, Patrick Abambo, thank you very much for your opening remarks. Let me get Group Captain Shehu into this conversation. Now, he has alluded to it, and we've seen the figures suggest a weakening of terror groups like Boko Haram, Lakurawa. So is it safe to say that this is, we're approaching a near defeat of these terror groups, or are they merely regrouping?
Well, thank you very much. Permit me to just go back a bit to say that in general, the GTI report for 2015, which again we must understand, when they say the GTI for 2015, it means it covers the period 2014. That is January to December 2014. It's a variegated picture. You know, it talks about country-specific issues, and they talk regional issues like what is in the Sahel, what is in West Africa, what is in Middle East, and the rest. So specifically what concerns us, when you say Nigeria, we're in the Sahel region, or at least part of Nigeria is in the Sahel. Part of Nigeria in West Africa. Part of Nigeria is in Lake Chad-based region because of our size. So for us, all these regions, they converge, they overlap. One area is there. So what does we may ask first, what does the global trend index, what does it measure? Now this is an index that was developed since 2012. It started 2012. It's an Australian-based organization owned by an Australian philanthropist. So it has this toga of being seen as independent. It is not a government-owned, impact. What does it measure? Every year from that 2012, it takes 163 countries across the world. They try to, as much as possible, to cover about 97% of the world population. They take these 163 countries and they rate them according to about 4 criteria. What are these criteria? Finally, what they want to do is, what is the impact of terrorism? Terrorism only. If you see that report, it doesn't talk about things that have to do with civil wars, things that have to do with police operations or accidents. All these are not related. They just zero in on terrorism. And the 4 aspects they look at are, first, what is the number of terrorist incidents that have been recorded in the country from January to December of that year? That is one thing. Secondly, they take the number of deaths attributed to those terrorist attacks in that country for the year. Third, they take the number of people reported to have been injured by those terrorist attacks. And then finally, the property, losses or property damage that is accrued. Now, for Nigeria, like I said, it is not all bad news. But what captured people mostly is that we were 8 in 2004 report, which covered 2023, and now we are 6. So definitely when you look at that, you will say there's a regression. That means we have moved backwards. However, you have to go, like they say, the details, I mean, the devil is in the details. You have to go in the details. We have to look at these 4 criteria. That is as a way of informing government, as informing our armed forces, where should they put? Because if you don't understand what the person is majoring, you're only looking at the overall. It's like you finish a degree, if you don't get your transcript, you really don't know what you what you scored in each. Yes, how you fared. You may just say, okay, I have C+. So when we look at this report, you see, in where Nigeria actually, in the 4 indices that I said, this report addressed 3 indices, and it is in 2 indices that Nigeria had a reversal. For example, in the deaths, which again, like I said, I've mentioned these 4 indices, but the one that carries the most weighted point is deaths, naturally, because we are talking of human lives. That's what carried, then followed probably by number of attacks, then followed by injuries. In the deaths, in the previous report, we had 524 deaths. And then this year, we had 565. So when you do the simple mathematics there, you will see that we had an increase in number of deaths of 7.83%. That, more than any other thing, was what dragged Nigeria's ranking downwards. And unfortunately, again, for that period, we had 2 very nasty attacks. Because when you say an attack, there's an attack that nobody will even be killed, or 1 person will be injured. Unfortunately, for that 2014, according to the report, we had 2 very fatal attacks, like the one that happened on 1st September 2024 in Yobe State, where in that single attack in Mafa local government, in Mafa village in Tarboa local government area of Yobe State, close to 100 to 130 farmers were killed by Boko Haram. At that time, Boko Haram said that those people were supporting Nigerian army, so they attacked them. This singular attack is one of the most horrendous. In fact, it featured as number 7 out of the 28 deadliest attacks reported in the whole of the world. The next attack that happened, again, just like my brother said, is that on 10th of April of 2024 again. But this time around, it was a fight between ISWAP and Boko Haram, where about 80 of them, between themselves, they killed about 80 of them. So these 2 attacks was contributed to this, our numbers of deaths. So this is a regression. The second area is injuries. In the previous report, we had 89 people reported as injured. Then this year, we had 177. Again, we have an increase of about, this one almost doubled as far as number of people that are injured. The report, again, moved to also incidents. In the previous report, now this is where we have something to smile at. And anybody living in Nigeria, just scanning the news, when last did you hear Boko Haram, attacked? It's becoming less and less. In the previous year, we had 144 attacks, but luckily for us, in this report, we had only 99. So we had a decrease of 31.72%. But like I told you, loss of lives is giving a more weighted average. So when you permutate distance, this is what made us to move from the 8th to the 6th position. The higher you are, it means the worse that terrorism has impacted on you. Now, having said that, this is why I said it is not all bad and gloom. If we are having less attack from Boko Haram, from the military perspective, we can say it's because their capacity to attack is less. And I call the figures where they attacked in Adamawa State. It's villages that they went and attacked, not really. That's what we call normally soft targets. So there is good thing and there is bad thing. We said it because it's only when you know these things. If you just read, what normally I read is Nigeria has moved from C. But you need to go to these details to actually understand where is it that we can improve, where is it that, and if even good for our security and even our policy makers. Now they know how this rating is. Because with due respect, in doing analysis on terrorism index, you cannot sweep away GTI report. Right now, it is the most credible report. But again, I come back to what Mr. Abombo said. Definitely, it's not as if the GTI, they have people planted all over, they don't have that resources. So what they do is they take reports, and they say it plainly. They take reports from, from what is available, from media reports, from
we will come to sources.
Okay.
We will come to sources because that's an important aspect of it. Because they claim that this is basically an empirically driven report. Yes. And again, that's why I asked Patrick, what is the bad side for us and what is the good side? Because again, on the surface, we're it's gladdening, but in the details, that's where you find, the very important, factors that we should be concerned about. Mr. Ben, again, the report indicates that global terrorism is shifting, and it's shifting towards the central, Sahel region in sub-Saharan, Africa. And of course, that's where we are. That's where Nigeria is. And it's given a 43%, increase in global terrorism within this region. I mean, what should we be concerned?
Absolutely, we should be concerned because, you see, no matter what, little insurgency, you don't underrate it. Nip it in the bud. When Boko Haram was coming on board, some people rather saw it like a thing that would be curtailed by the police, and what was supposed to be low intensity conflict, you begin to roll out the tanks as opposed to the use of small weapons and small guns and light weapons. So we should be concerned that, look at the case with the Lakurabas. When they moved in from Mali, then Niger, they were around Sokoto, the Tangaza axis, and some other local governments. Now, they were there for quite a long time. And they tended to a kind of assist security agency and assist local communities. Not until they started growing wings, started hoisting some flags, started imposing tax on people, and therefore they kind of gained some territory and felt they should control those areas. They could whip some people, they could arrest some people. It was becoming a country within a country, and no nation will ever accept that as Nigeria. So when we say, yes, there has to be a thing of concern, yes, there has to be. And that is why today you could see the military operations in those areas. We're talking of a situation where the military will have to be the aggressor. They must take the war to them. The Nigerian military should not be a reactionary kind of a thing. They dominate, and that is why we tend to have these successes 2024. Before now, you could just simply guess that the moment there's going to be any religious festival, Christian, Muslim, all you need to do is to begin to think, where will the next attacks come from? But today we don't see it. That we are also seeing some of these social activities by the military, West African social activities, they call it the WASA. I mean, tells you that, yes, things are becoming better, but not again without looking at the personnel. I do remember when Labaja of blessed memory was appointed, there was an event in Ibadan, if Mr. Patrick Abango will remember. The Chief of Defense Staff was there. All the service chiefs were there. And when General Chris Musa was given the floor, he said, look, the commanders, the moment we give you money, when government gives money, give to all of them as their own rights. Because, again, he said, no matter the military equipment we have, equipment do not fight the war. Personnel will do. And if personnel, therefore, will fight the war, what is it that you have to give to them? You kit them. Give them their allowances. Ratio cash allowance, you give them. And in terms of kitting them, you give them the kits that you do need and that they do need. In terms of accommodation, in terms of even those who are in the battlefield, what really do you give them? I do remember at the start of this Boko Haram, we were going into the trenches. I was embedded. At the point, you see some soldiers that didn't even have what you call the protective headgear, you know. But all of that changed with time, and because of that, there are successes, and that is why this report is favorable to Nigeria today. But that does not mean that Nigeria should just go to bed. It implies that if someone has recommended you, you therefore do more, and that is what
I'm actually thinking that if you look at the Sahel, I'm trying to get a map of the Sahel now, and you look at the position of Nigeria, and you look at the states that empty into, you know, those other states like Niger, Chad, most of our states that border these countries, you understand, are routes, are transit routes, you know, for arms. So does it become even more concerning, you know, for us to take this report seriously?
Yeah, the truth is that we must take the report serious. I commend him for giving us the details of the report. And the report, at least to give a guide of what we're having and what we face. The Sahel is actually right now the trouble zone of the world, and one cannot rule it out. And we know the factors that are playing out here. So those states, unfortunately, Nigeria, and I can point out to some other countries within the Sahel, they have the most porous borders you can think of. But again, you see that they have similar cultures, they have relationship, they share markets, they share a lot of things. So it's easy for people to come in easily. I have been to some of these border towns between Nigeria and some of these countries, and I've seen that you won't even know the difference. So trafficking of arms becomes easy. And again, West African ECOWAS protocol of free movement of persons and goods also means that you can't even control some of all these things. So it's not, you don't just traffic arms alone, you traffic even the fighters themselves. Just like he pointed out about the Lakaroas, how they move in easily. You can't stop them. And that portends the greatest danger that we have in the Sahel and in Nigeria particularly.
Do we have to worry a bit more because of the sad relationship in ECOWAS at the moment, talking about Niger, Mali, Burkina Faso? Does it come with, is it a cause for more worry?
Yeah, it is because those countries were serving as buffer. They were this, even though the Chief of Defense Staff had made some encroachment, made some advances to them to try to get them to understand that we share the same challenge, we share the same problem, and so we must cooperate. But the sentiment of the people is they believe that ECOWAS is not being fair to them, and so they're not ready to cooperate with anybody that quote unquote is part of the ECOWAS. And free movement of these people, they can see and look away so long as they are not attacking their people. Unlike before, where if you are pursuing from here, those people are attacking too, and you have some success. But now, sometimes they can look away and they allow these people to pass. So it calls for concern. It calls that we must do everything. ECOWAS must do everything to bring everybody on board. We can't say they should go. If we must win this fight, because it's good. It's currently we're having the committee of chief of defense staffs of ECOWAS meeting in Nigeria, and it's a time for, unfortunately, some of these countries you mentioned, their chiefs are not there. We're talking about standby force, ECOWAS standby force, and we need these people to be on board so that we can actually win this fight.
Let's look more closely at this report. And if we can have that graph, you know, the global index from 2014, the cases of terror attack, you know, declined from 713 to 99 in 2024. It got the highest, of course, 2014, 2015, 2018. And I don't know, Group Captain, let's even look at, what was responsible, for the decline in the cases of terror attacks.
Well, the only way you can, account for the decline in the terror attacks is actually with the efforts of the security forces, because that is the only thing. You need one force to counter another force. But in as much as the terrorist will always look for a place where he can make maximum impact, I want us to understand, you might even reduce the number of terror attacks, but if, they had like they did on the 1st of September, if they are able to attack a village and wipe out almost the village, the numbers will go up as far as the GTI report is. But having said that, permit me to explain. When we talk about the deaths that are counted by GTI report, people need to understand, as far as GTI is concerned, like we used to say in the Nogel Palace, all die na die. That is to say, these deaths, it includes our own soldiers, police, government officials, the Boko Haram and ISWAP themselves, and the local farmers or the inhabitants there. So what they count is all deaths. People need to understand that. Now, having said that, again, we have to ask. Is the GTI report without its biases?
No, I was coming to that. Yes. I wanted us to look at factors, that accounted for the decline in the cases of the attacks first, because even the number itself, we would also, interrogate whether it's reflective of the reality, depending on the sources.
Exactly.
But let's look at what has happened. Is it in terms of leadership in the military? Is it in terms of more resources? Is it in terms of more funding? What do you think? Because from 2014 to now, I mean, we've had, a number of leadership change in the service chiefs, in the commanding, structure and all that.
Yes. So definitely, this is again, when you said we'll come to that, this is one of the weaknesses of the GTI report. What it does in a research, you have the quantitative and qualitative research method. The GTI is quantitative. Get the point? They are always interested in numbers. They do not look at the context. For example, in fact, not only Nigeria, countries in the past like India, like Pakistan, like China, they have, spoken against what the report said about their countries. Why? They said it doesn't take context. Just yesterday, I saw General Kangwe, who is the new defense man, talking about just last month we did this, we did that. Again, when I had it, I just smiled. I said, this is again the problem of the GTI. Like I said, the report came out in 2015, just last week or 2 weeks back. But I said it is talking of January to December 2024. So that is to say anything that happened from ending of December to now is not captured in that report. You have to put that at the back of your mind. And it doesn't take context. Like, for example, unfortunately for the security man or for the government trying to show its country, the GTI report will not show, for example, how many Boko Haram have surrendered. It will not show the number of equipment that the military has added, the opening of new units, people that are rescued. All these things, the GTI is not concerned about them. But if you take these things, the government or the military will show it, and legitimately so, they will show it as advances. So the GTI report, like you said, will come to that. It's one of the criticisms. I would like later to come to the criticism of the report.
Yes,
it doesn't give the counter-terrorism efforts that are being done. All it is interested are those 4 figures I said. How many attacks happened? How many people died? How many were injured?
Cases as well, because it tells you about the cases.
To be fair to them, they even give dates.
Yes.
They give, like, for example, the 20th worst attacks in 2014, where Nigeria has like 3 inside. They give the 50 worst attacks in 2014. They do that with dates and places, which is something you could check. To be honest with you, I took my time to even go back to the media to check some of the reports. But it doesn't take context. It goes back. That is to say, if the military does something after December, it is not captured in this report.
Well, now that we are talking context, let me ask Ben Shemang, as a journalist, what does this report mean for you? I mean, the indices that have been used, and then the report itself. And of course, Group Captain Shehu has talked about what it doesn't take into account.
Yeah, you see, with the journalist, Honestly, one is taken aback sometimes as to the way we hurry to give out figures, screaming headlines that tend to be a bit scary, a kind of. So, we are talking of human lives, but the report is simply talking about figures, 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 as if these are not human beings, as if these are people who do not really matter. At the point, one is tempted to say that it's like they are saying that look, the figure is a continuous kind of thing. It has to go up, up, up. No, but what we're also saying that in terms of the media, there is what you call the publicity-seeking terrorist attacks. What they do is to attack, and the media will naturally rush at it and bring it out to the public for. And that is why at the point some people will say, why don't we go into this policy of social responsibility theory, whereby if you think that these figures are likely to shake even the military, shake even the society, or shake even family members, you have a relationship, a relation who is fighting this war. Now there are attacks. Some people are feasting on figures. So I think that on the side of the journalist, we should not be so fast as to bringing out figures. I recall an incident, for example, around Mafa. I don't know, Patrick was there, where we were in a convoy with Chief of Army Staff then, and we came under attack. Incidentally, I was in the communications vehicle of the director of communications. It was like running a football commentary. I could hear the figures, I could hear those who have been killed and all that stuff. So I was waiting to also see how these figures will come out. And SK Usman actually came out with what I had. So I said, so you people can be this exact? He said, yes, we are talking of human lives. We are losing people, but we have killed more. But you see that the media at the point pays more attention as to soldiers being killed, as if, I mean, why are we not also showing the other side as to the successes of the military in terms of these attacks? So I think that we should be careful not to be used as involuntary platforms for these terrorists to just say, yeah, we have made a point, just wait and see how they're going to amplify this news. So to them, once they strike, they don't need, all they do is to just wait somewhere and begin to monitor and see the effect. And that is why I think they should be disappointed, the terrorists, that today's report appears to, not really appears because it's scientific, according to them, yes, it's scientific. And when we're talking about figures, the figures at the point, some will say they are not lying. We're talking of quantitative and qualitative approach to this report. So
Yes, now that you've touched on that, so let's look at the basis for arriving at, you know, the numbers. And we've said, group captain retired said quantitative, which means, of course, they're dealing with numbers. The question will then be, how did they arrive at the numbers? What are the sources? Who are the sources? How credible are these sources?
Okay. He has said it, and I think in the beginning I did query the issue about these figures, because he is pointing out another aspect of it, which I have experienced. I have been sometimes privileged to be on the field with this, and I've seen, after both on the other side, both sides, figures, we see dead bodies and all that, and I've seen how the media come out and the figures are up. And when you ask, I also have the privilege of asking some news editors, how did you get this figure? Mm-hmm. Because this is contrary to, they say, look, one of the editors told me, look, we need to sell the news. I can tell you this, that the people don't care if you report that there's nothing, no death. And I ask, in your conscience, is it all right to you? They said, but that is the news. That is the sad aspect of it. And that is a figure that agencies or organizations like GTI will peak. You understand? Now, I asked an incident happened, and somehow I know the real figure that happened, the incident that happened. One person was actually adopted by Boko Haram along Damaturu, Meduguri Road. And incidentally, that guy happened to be from one of the NGOs, international NGOs, and that was adopted. And the figure that came out in one of the national newspapers said that about 22 persons killed and of many people adopted. And I queried that figure because this is not true. And where did you get it? Well, I say you got it from AFP. I said, AFP is in France. How did they get the figure? Do they have a correspondent on ground that you in Nigerian media dependent on AFP to get your figure, and they don't have anybody on ground? So this, and when you ask some of these people, they will tell you they have a source. And who are these sources? Some will say they ask some communities, some community members gave them some of these figures. Okay, the credibility of those people also is in question. And I've seen a situation whereby an incident had not actually finished happening. But it was already on the media that it had happened. And I'll now ask, are you aware that this incident will happen? Did you know it will happen? Did you know the figure of persons that will be involved? So it brings another question. There's a pre-agreed report that must come out in an incident, and sometimes. So these are the pointers that query some of all these figures when we talk about it. Yes, an incident happened, somebody died sadly, or people died sadly, but how truthful are those figures that we are brandishing as media persons, as even community members sometimes? Because the community members may not know totally. They may not know totally from the side of the community people, from the side of the insurgents, or from the side of the state actors. You may not know, but you have dependent and asked, and they give it to you. So it gives some of these sources, like your question directly, are questionable. But again, they are pointers, like he said. The report pointed dates, and they were attacks. But the figure of the actual deaths or injuries may not be accurate. Some countries have questioned this GTI report. Some countries have had reason to say, no, this figure here, it's not what we have, and those incidents. But again, it's to guide and ensure that the right things are done.
All right, Patrick Abambu, thank you. I know that Group Captain Shehu had picked, some holes in the credibility of the report, but you have also said that it is the most credible available. So, do you find a correlation between the report on Nigeria and, what happens in the Sahel? At least that can be a basis for determining how credible it is or how not so. And another thing I would like you to have at the back of your mind is, if, for instance, they have said that Nigeria now ranks 10th or even 12th.
Sixth.
No, I'm saying,
Just for example, yeah.
An instance, would we question all the same the credibility of the report?
Well, every research method or every researcher, can be, we can see there are potential pitfalls that should fall into. Because most report agencies, sometimes it is a government agency, sometimes it is a private agency, sometimes it is an agency that has commercial interest. So already that bias is potential. I'm not saying it happened, but it's a potential. Now, with due to the GTI, they said they pick, just like Abambu said, they pick from reports from countries. Now, let's be honest with ourselves. Even within the Nigerian media, depending on who owns the media, depending on where the region is, depending on whether the media is pro-government or against government, you could have variations. The attack I came back, which I said in the Nigerian, what GTI did, and I checked it. In fact, they left it at between 100 to 150. What does that tell you? It means they have consulted several sources. Some said 100, some said 110. In fact, some people reported it as low as 8, that particular attack. I checked, I actually took time to check it. So what am I saying? Since they rely on publicly available information, the potential to either beef up the numbers or to underreport is always there, depending on it. But what a conscientious researcher will do is to interpolate. He wouldn't take just one source and say, Back to the issue again raised by Agbambo has to do with media ethics. The media man, I was the director of public relations and I've done some media studies in Bayero University. The media man has the duty to inform. With regards to terrorism, you have to look at the duty to inform versus also the general good of the public. Do I say if 50 soldiers or 50 bandits are attacked and they kill 50 people, do I need to bring that? There is the danger that if you do that, just like my brother here said, they will be emboldened because the terrorist or the bandit always wants to see what effect did I have. But then again, as a conscientious journalist, you have this thing, should I report it and create chaos, or sometimes to serve as a platform, like Mr. Sherman said, for this thing. So these are things that a conscientious media man will have to do. I think, in my own opinion and in my own, the media studies I have done, specifically regarded to terrorism, in George C. Marshall Center for European Studies in Germany, I used to go and give lectures on the program terrorism. One of the issues, media and terrorism. What experts agree is that you may not tell the media man not to do his duty of informing with regard to terrorism. You have to fulfill that duty. But in doing that, again, you don't glamorize attacks by bandits. Like, for example, you can say Boko Haram stormed 91 Brigade in a Gestapo kind of, and smashed. You get the point? In that point, now you are glamorizing. But then the media ethics, if you know the numbers, unless, of course, again, this is why working with the military and the security. The military might come and say, look, for national interest, please hold this. Either don't say this or hold this till another time. Sometimes it's even delaying the time of releasing the report that is necessary. So these are the issues. The media man, a conscientious media man, honest, has a debate to do within himself. I wouldn't go to the extreme of saying don't report. But at the same time, I would caution about glamorizing. I would also caution about, getting the sick in of the conversing with the, will this affect your operations? And then maybe holding it that kind of thing.
Reporting, conflict and war zones like this requires some technicality.
Exactly.
You don't just, give. And that's why those reporting, defense and all that will need some form of, training. Some, on how to report, conflict in a dynamic and evolving, society. But again, before we bring in Mr. Ben, I'd like you, given your points and observations, with the number and our ranking, and I hear that the DHQ has come out to say our ranking, at number 6 is even unfair, and all that. Do you think that the numbers and ranking, do they really reflect, current realities, or are they conservative, or are they just being unfair?
Currency is one of the attacks against, like I said, when we say people want to say 2025, they think the report is as what happened last week. It's not like that. It's January to December 2024. So with due respect, if DHQ gave, and I saw an update, like last week of what happened in the last 10 days, certainly it's not captured in that report. And again, I want to emphasize, certainly the report does not talk about how many Boko Haram have surrendered. They will not talk of an attack that, for example, the Nigerian intelligence has gotten a report that Boko Haram are going to launch an attack and they were able to pounce on their logistic base and stop the attack. What didn't happen does not matter. But again, to be fair to the security man, out of 2 attacks that will happen, probably there were 8 that were nipped in the bud, but this report will not capture them. The report will not talk about people that have been held by Boko Haram and then they were liberated. The attack will not talk about people. He talked about festivities. Will not talk about in the past people don't go for Salah, they don't go for Christmas in Maiduguri, but now they are going. He will not talk about how many refugees or how many IDPs have returned back to their decision. So these are some of the, you know, again, but again, to be fair again to GTI, it will be difficult. Not only GI for any report to capture all those things. I think what does, because there are about 10 other rating agencies that talk about this security. We have Accolade, even in Nigeria here. We have my friend Dr. Kabir Adamu.
But that means they need to, like you said, probably use the interpolation method of research.
Exactly.
Yeah, so
exactly.
you don't just depend on just the quantitative research.
Exactly.
So because if you do that, you will be leaving out other important factors that will impact on the ranking.
But having said that, there's another report, because this the organization that sponsors GTP is called Institute for Economics and Peace. Good. Interestingly, and what Nigerians should look, there's also a report, just like they have the Global Terrorism Index, they also have the Global Peace Index.
Okay, I know you want
yes. The Global Peace Index is there. Now, the Global Peace Index, to be honest, is more comprehensive, because that one will even go into people detained, human rights abuses, everything that contributes to peace. So that one is
it's another top document on its own.
All right, let me get back to Ben Shemang. Now, we are talking about the report, well, credibility or not, but this is the same measure for every country involved. Exactly. It's not like Nigeria is, you know, singled out and used, you know, and these features are used. It is used for the same country. So should that still impugn the integrity of the report?
Yeah, you see, there is what is called media literacy. To what extent do you know about the philosophy of that media organization? Are they pro-government? Are they anti-government? Now, if they don't really like the government of the day, they have a bone to pick with just a serving officer, not the institution itself. You now see that the report will be so hostile. And the moment something is being brought by an online body that is based in some other obscure areas, all they do is to fund someone. How many people have been killed? You've seen reports where, depending on one village head, to give the report of what happened, including casualty figures. And once that is published, of course, you see that in terms of this index, they'll just add it and say it's coming from the Nigerian media. Yes, it's coming from the Nigerian media, but for what purpose is that report? There are times you do it to a kind of show that the government is weak. You want to do it to show that the military itself is like it's weak. But when you have all of this and an agency they are using it as a very credible source, when indeed back home, how many people reckon with them? If a minister were to do a press conference now, do they even get invited? But you see, by the time they add all of this, they now say the Nigerian media, and that constituted a source. So they also have to have the media literacy to know who is who in the media world. And outside that, just like it's been pointed out here, in terms of conscience, we're talking about developmental journalism, for example. Why is it that today we still believe in the olden days of the cliche that when it bleeds, it leads? It shouldn't be. We're talking about social responsibility. When you had the American Second Amendment, when they're talking about libertarian theory of mass communication, they just say, look, bring the news. It does not matter who is injured. Everybody has the conscience to pick. But with us, if you're going to report something and you know it's going to impinge, it's going to a kind of bring to question the credibility of the reporter, the credibility of the media organization, and even the country, why put it there? For what objective? Now, if you also realize that there have been instances where the military will have some operations to do or carry out, but somewhere along the line, a journalist reveals that, and operational plans have been revealed to the enemy. So if the Nigerian troops move, of course they get attacked. So should we be waiting for all of that kind of a thing? So in terms of the media coverage, the courage and the way to move, it is to also accept the fact that this is a nation that, yes, we have to stitch it together, but the journalists too will not just say, publish what you have and damn the consequences. The consequences are too there for us to say, no, let's just simply go to libertarian.
I had asked because even this report still recorded that Nigeria had, in a decade, 2024 was the year that we had the least terror attacks. That should count for something.
Exactly, it should count for something because, of course, the terrorists or the attackers have also, the war has been taken onto them. In terms of having that capability to do it, it's been decimated. And that's why you don't find them this way. Those days that you used to have recruitments being done, you find people even coming from our neighboring countries, over how much? 5,000, you come in, you get trained, and they tell you, if you do this kind of improvised explosive device, if you hit this way, this the circumference is going to happen, this is going to be the impact, and if you target where the population is, worshippers, a market or a school, those soft targets, then you must have reached your pinnacle. But all the same, we are saying that because the military in Nigeria is actually up to the game today, and that's why this figure is down. So we expect that the next report, 2025, should also go down, hopefully. Because I do remember when, at the point, journalists were taken to the 7th div in Maiduguri. Amnesty International had given a report of how the Nigerian military was not getting it right, human rights violations and all that stuff. Then they said, come, let's go to Maiduguri. Where is it that your report is always been in Abuja here? We go to Maiduguri and you see what is happening. When you say, get these people, try them before anything. Tell me a court that is standing. Tell me a police station that is standing. Tell me a prison system that is standing. These people have destroyed many of these things. So when we catch them, we just send them to Mangudu barracks.
Okay,
and we can now see.
Ben, let's put, I thought we would just take a break and, you know, for us to go on break. We'll come back and you complete your thought, Peter. Welcome back to the program. It's Good Morning Nigeria, and it's happening live on the network service of the NTA. And we're discussing the Global Terrorism Index report, world report, and we're focusing, of course, on Nigeria's 6th ranking on the global index. And let me bring in Mr. Ben. Again, Group Captain retired talked about the numbers, deaths, and, you know, the destructions. And I'm wondering if we've had, you know, an increase according to, you know, what you've given us. What does that tell us about, you know, the efforts of our fighting men, you know, the efforts of our military, the efforts of government in counterterrorism?
Yeah, I can see, for example, like the military, they now have what they call a cyber security center, and that is aiding in terms of, you see, the war today. We are not simply talking of the size of or the number of troops on ground. You know, you could have, for example, Group Captain Sadiq is here. What can one pilot do, for example? And you compare also the troops you're going to deploy on the ground. And that's why you now talk of the synergy. If the Air Force torment them via the skies, then someone is on ground to take charge. You know, so I think in terms of the armed forces of Nigeria, unlike those days we hear that there's no synergy, they don't work together, I can see that even the Nigerian customs, they're now working together with the military. We're talking about immigration, they're also working with the military. So it's everybody's.
So there's better synergy now.
Exactly, there's better synergy now. And the deployment of science and tech, it's very vital, and I can see that some of the research findings of the military are today being commissioned into the theater of operation. For example, you have this Nzogu. It's an MRAD, anti-personnel mine carriers. They are manufactured here in Kaduna, and you also have the Defense Industries Corporation, I mean,
Backup.
yeah, exactly. In terms of their light weapons or small arms, of course, they are coming up very hot. So what I think Nigeria should do, the Nigerian authorities is to also pump some money into some of these research areas. Look at the Nigerian Air Force Institute in Kaduna. They are creating and making drones. Now, if we can have drones that can even do some surveillance in the night, and they do some movement, come back to base, and you analyze the data, and I think we'll move better. And we're seeing more recruitments virtually every year. Air Force, Navy, and Army, they do recruitments. But again, where are the barracks? These are people are supposed to be. So if you bring more personnel, it also implies you have to have more barracks, give them the welfare, and they'll perform. Then in terms of even the National Assembly too, when you hear that some agencies, some military, ministries have not been paid or money is not being released for some operations, I think that will also be a plus to the terrorists. They tend to know when our
Morale
soldiers...
is low.
Exactly. These terrorists tend to know when we have equipment. They know when our equipments are down. So it should be a continuous firing point as we are finishing this bullet. Mark you, any bullet that is fired is dollars that are going. And that is why in terms of making our own equipment, I think it is a good thing that we do it here, we do it. And before you cut me short, sometimes you see, sometimes you see that these terrorists also learn what some other people are doing. What am I saying? Just 2 days ago, a whole train was hijacked in Pakistan.
Yeah.
And the military went there. I mean, they've been able to rescue the passengers, even though some people are dead. Usually, these terrorists begin to learn what has happened in a place. Can we replicate it somewhere? Now, is it not a warning signal for our own people here? Because we're talking of our own railway system that will be transversing various states and forests. And when we have some of these bandits. So it gives us some thinking that some people should go to the drawing board and begin to plan ahead. So that it's always said that, you see, you have to be ahead of them.
All right. Thank you, Benjamin. Let me get back to Patrick Abambo as we gradually wind up this conversation. What policy changes do you think we can now implement on the basis of this report? Should we take it seriously enough, even if not in whole, maybe in parts?
No, we cannot throw away the report. We can't. It's like throwing away the baby with the bathwater. No, we can't do that. It has. There are points we'll pick from there for our own good to improve what we're doing. Definitely, even though we may question sources, but some of the dates and frequency and the numbers of attacks, we need to look at it and be a bit more proactive this time around. It's sad that this is within us. We are here, we are facing it, and we have to. It's not something. It's not a 100-meter dash where you think will have wiped away. It's not possible any longer. And you see, when the group captain was talking, I was just reflecting back. There was a time where we didn't experience all these things. But from that 2010, 2011, 2012, when this thing started, and then as the armed forces then did not kind of understand what was happening, and that is why I give kudos, because over this time they have improved drastically. Nigeria today can beat its chest and say, yes, we have a group of soldiers and officers that can talk about terrorism, tackling terrorism. I have been in some fora internationally where Nigeria was giving credit. What we need to do, arising from this report, is that we need to improve in terms of being ahead of these bad boys, because then to do that is that we need to improve our intelligence gathering. That is the most important thing. We don't wait for it to happen and we'll start going to rescue, because it's more expensive and more difficult to chase after, because before the community will even get to you, the deed have been done. So we need to be able to cultivate intelligence that would preempt what these things will happen. Like it's pointed out, some of their logistic base can be taken off even before they start planning. When there are any movement, recently there were sighting of some of these bandits along the Abuja Cardinal Road. Before they could strike, they were taken off. Those are the improvements that we can get from it. That will help to reduce the number of attacks that we are talking about, because they will not have that capacity and they will be afraid to even come out to attack, because usually when they go to where in their camps are in the hills or in the forest, sometimes the terrain to those areas are a bit difficult to access. So, but you need to cultivate these locals who will give you information, timely information. That is the most important thing.
Okay.
I think so.
Patrick, thank you. Great Captain, I'm just wondering if you can give us an insight on the reasons that GTI gave, for for its report, for its ranking for Nigeria, and how should we begin to approach or address those issues.
Thank you very much. Like I said, in the 4 aspects that GTI rated Nigeria, that is number of terrorist attacks, number of people killed, number of injuries, and number of incidents. In the first 3, that is in the first 3, there was a regression. That means we come back. Now, in the 4th one, which should be a shining distinction for us, there is a reduced number of about 37% of number of attacks that Boko Haram or ISWAP is able to carry out. That should be, we should not look at the report as an all bad report. It's a good thing, because I'm saying from military perspective, if my enemy is not able to launch the attacks, it means there is something I'm doing to constraining him from attack, and we should continue doing that. And again, when we look at the report in total, GTI started in 2012. There have been 17 reports now or something like that. This 6 is not really bad. When you look at the fact that if between 2015 2017, we were rated 3rd or 2nd, 322. We were sometimes 5, we were sometimes 6. So the 6th is even the 2nd best ranking we've ever gotten. It's not good enough, because there are countries with 0.
Yeah,
we should be moving. We should move
Even
in.
Ghana has 0.
But Ghana is having. They have started having problem now. Yes. There was a conference held in Office of National Security Advisor just last week. In fact, they already have another edition. In fact, they have MNJTF in Ghana now.
But let us look at the challenges that GTI outlined, and how can both government institutions and the military approach those challenges or weaknesses that they have identified.
Thank you very much. So in terms of recommendations, if that's what you are talking,
yes,
I have recommendations both for the Nigerian military or the whole security sector, and then for the government, because there are things that will be done by the military. There are things that at strategic political level, because they involve diplomacy. Now, in terms of recommendations for the military or the security agencies, I will tell them first, please, they are professionals. They should not just rely on the headlines of this report. I want the military to commission, a committee that will actually study this report. Because no matter, again, I must emphasize, there are different rating agencies that rate this thing. GTI, you cannot push it. Anybody who's going to do research on terrorism will refer to GTI. So even if for perception, even if for morale, we should try and look good on GTI. So put a committee that will study this report, not just the headlines, not the numbers, where Nigeria was mentioned, what is there. It is something that is doable. After doing that, you also look to, if, for example, I am assuming now, if, for example, you are able to find some discrepancies, like I said, I checked some of the reports that were there, 20 worst attacks with dates and places. If there are discrepancies, it is within the right of Nigeria not only to make a press conference, which they have already done, but also to write to GTI that your 2025 ranking, this is what we found what does not account. You are even helping GTI, you are also helping yourself. This is done openly. The third something is that, like I said, they should not see it as a completely bad report. This is my own view. It's not completely. The fact that attacks of Boko Haram is going down, to me, is a good report. That is as far as the military is concerned. For the government, political, diplomatic level, we have been talking of Lake Chad Basin region, Sahel region, West Africa region. What does that tell us? Terrorism is an international phenomenon. There's no country that cannot listen. The CDS, has been doing some forays diplomatically, but it is more of a strategic, diplomatic, international relations issue. We must try and mend fences. We may have political or geopolitical differences. This one is supporting China, this one is supporting France. But when it comes to security, honestly, there is no way we can solve this insurgency problem without aligning with our neighbors. Nigeria is not a wasted effort to try and win. Unfortunately, like it was raised, we're having the problem of fragmentation within the ECOWAS. But Nigeria is not wasting its effort if it tries to bridge these cracks. Even if we cannot all come back to ECOWAS, but at least
at bilateral level.
At bilateral level, alliances for this MNJTF to continue, for all this to continue, Nigeria should not relent in doing that. And all other efforts, should be published. Now, this is a political, diplomatic relations issue. The military might involve. Already, I've had the Chief of Defense Staff saying that the withdrawal of Niger from NGT is affecting us. There was a meeting of Lake Chad Basin Governors region in Maiduguri some 2-3 weeks back. I was there. Niger was there. Because definitely the understanding is that without the cooperation of surrounding countries, honestly, you cannot do it alone. The Chief of Air Staff, Air Marshal Hassan, has also said the withdrawal, just last week, as well, saying that the withdrawal of Chad from the MNJTF is giving them additional problem. So no effort should be spared, but this should be taken by the government. These are some of the recommendations. But please,
not for the media.
Study the report wherever Nigeria is mentioned, because I want to see Nigeria going down, 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 until probably we get zero. Even though Agbambo has said it is.
I know you want to. Yes,
even America has not scored zero.
No, America has very high.
Yeah, because their own is internal.
Yes. Ben Shaman, your final thoughts on this?
Yeah, my final thought will just go to my own constituency, the media, for example, that we should report with some conscience. We should be careful the way we report. Where there are military operations to take place, we should not divulge information before. We shouldn't just tell the enemy where it should be. We shouldn't tell the enemy where our own troops will be. That will be a killer. Then for the military, in terms of where you keep on hearing of unoccupied spaces, the Sahelian region, there are places where these people get trained. Can we begin to invade these areas? Now, if we find out that ECOWAS protocol is injurious at a point, because we have to have free movement of goods, persons, and services, then we have to also take a critical look at it. Is it now injurious to Nigeria? We look at it seriously. And for the National Assembly, honestly, you just have to ensure that you release money for these people so that they perform and exceed what is being recommended 2024 or the report of 2024, that it is better for Nigeria so that Nigeria gets a better way. And we should also begin to manufacture our own equipment. The Mzogu that has been released onto the fight, I think it's a good omen. And we engage communities like the Civilian Joint Task Force. We have to have them all over the place. Community, the voice for everyone, so that collectively we win.
What will be the role of communities in all of this?
The role of community, if you had Lakurawas who came in, was there nobody, no councillor that could report to someone in that local government? Was there no personnel of DSS? Was there no DPO somewhere? Was there no traditional ruler somewhere that will report? When you report, therefore, someone goes to the center, and the center looks at it. It looks like we have some signals that something is going wrong. So the community, everybody, religious, traditional, political class, everyone will have to be involved.
Patrick, just in 60 seconds, what's your recommendation?
My recommendation is taking it from the community responsibility. They have great role to play in all this. So we need to play more role. We should not say it's the government alone. They have, and they must do this their role with all consciousness, because they will be the loser at the end of the day, and that is the thing.
All right, Patrick Agbamo, security expert, thank you very much for your perspective. Ben Shamang, former director, news and defense correspondent, Voice of Nigeria. We appreciate you for coming. And Group Captain Sadiq Shehu, retired, private consultant on security and defense matters, CEO, Conflict Security and Development Consult. We appreciate you. Thank you very much. And that's Good Morning Nigeria for today. We thank you for watching. Don't forget, tomorrow is Friday, and of course, Victor will be here.
And you won't be here.
I'm Claire. Have a good day.
I am Victor, as we will see you again tomorrow.